Welcome to the second part of our end of year wrap up, where me and Sabrine continue to share the lessons that we've learned from the previous episodes that we've recorded, as well as talking about some of our favorite guests along the way. Enjoy.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Unmute, the well-being podcast brought to you by WeCare. All episodes streamed on Spotify and internally via Core and Concentrix University for our game changers.
The next question's a bit of a test.
Okay.
So it's what lessons, like well-being related lessons, have you learned from any guests and you've been able to take away and apply to your own life?
Okay, let's see. I already talked before about Julie Hamidis, but let's see if I have another one. But overall, I would say, like the power of connection. It's one of the biggest lessons that I get from, like all the conversations that we had. But especially when we understand that well-being is not a solo journey. It's not something that you do by yourself. It's something that you do as a community. And having this community at work is something that makes everything different. And I noticed that because I spend, like most of my day at work and, like with the game changers and with everybody here. And I can guarantee to you, if I hadn't had this, like this great connection, this great place, it wouldn't be bearable to do this. And this is why it's so important. And I noticed that, like, especially when we talk about the importance of practicing well-being, of putting more awareness, of talking to like different aspects of our own journey, this brings a sense that we are here, but we can think about ourselves in a holistic way too. So it's not only about the Sabrine that is working, that is a mental health professional that has to, like achieve this and kind of metrics, but also about myself, and that I have a cat that I really love, and I have some hobbies that it's something that, like I can also put here in the workplace too. But one of the episodes that I remember was with Joe McCormick, where we talked about body image and the importance of, like self-awareness and accepting yourself in the way that you are. And I believe that episode broke a lot of stigmas, not only for me, but I would say for the listeners too, when we talk about self-acceptance, because sometimes we think that it's only about loving ourselves and that's it. Like, no, you have to love yourself and you're set. It's not only about it, but it's also about how do you relate with the things that you do, and how self-esteem can be not only about the way that you see your body, but also the way that you are interacting with your colleagues or interacting with the things that you see on social media, with the things that you have on your personal life too. So that was a big lesson for me, especially because sometimes I got myself struggling with body image too. And I'm like, okay, so I remember that it's not only about looking into the mirror and saying, okay, that's it, but it's also about how am I going to engage in the other aspects of my life. And if I'm reading books that I love, if I'm doing things with the people that I love too, this also brings me a great sense of self-esteem. So that was one thing that I really learned with Joe, and that stuck with me and probably will be for the rest of my life.
That's really nice. Yeah. Well, you passed that test. My goodness, they were some good answers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very...
Thank you. But and
Well, my next question I wanted to ask was, if we put the guests and the subjects to one side for a moment, what have you learned about yourself?
no.
I'm thinking more as like by being a host of a podcast and having those sometimes difficult conversations, knowing that they are having an impact on people. When you look back, how does that make you feel about yourself?
Yeah. I get that makes me feel like I'm not alone. Like having these conversations makes me feel like, okay, so I'm located in Brazil, and I know that we have someone that is, like in the other side of the country, in another time zone, in another side of the planet. And sometimes it's feeling the same that I am, even though we're from different cultures, even though we have different backgrounds, different ages. So I already, like had the episode with people twice my age or, like younger than me too. And it was always a chance of, like opportunity to get to know something different. So as a person who, like always lived in Brazil, had only a few opportunities to get out of the country. So every time that I get in touch with different cultures, that is so powerful. So I try
Yeah.
to, like get a lot from that. And that's why I do love concentrics as well, because we have these kind of opportunities. So
Mm.
here I work with teams from across the globe. We do have, like the privileges of speaking English and then being able to communicate. But I
Yeah.
would say that, like having this moment to, like actually get to know people in different cultures really brings, like warms my heart. So
Mm.
that is something that I would say that, like really sticks out for me.
Yeah. No, that's lovely. That's a really like significant thing I think to learn about yourself, and like you say,
Yeah.
the different factors of the demographics of you and the guests of it, whether it's age or life experiences, and then you realize it doesn't matter because we're all people and we all have
Hmm.
the same challenges and the same feelings and emotions, and yeah, it's comforting.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I
No,
agree a
you're
100%.
you're doing amazingly well at these answers.
Oh, thank you,
You're
Jill.
more insightful. I
Yeah,
love it.
it's the end of the year. I already had two
Mm,
Christmas celebrations with my team today.
yeah.
So I had a lot of time to think about my own life during the days.
Okay.
So I,
Yeah.
I,
Well,
I'm inspired being here.
no, that's such a valid point there. At this time of the year, we're all doing it. When we go into
Right?
January and there's a lot of New Year's resolutions, and it's all about looking ahead. I think it's really
Hmm.
important that we don't go through these weeks without reflecting and looking back and what would
Exactly.
I do differently and what am I proud of, and look at these things I've accomplished. It's equally
Hmm.
as important.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, Before we go, I do want to ask about 2025. But before asking
Okay.
that question, I've got some stats about our podcast, which I thought were really cool and worth sharing. So
Nice.
it's since August, which is not a huge amount of time, but when we launched Unmute in August, since that time, we have been played in 55 countries around the world. So, yeah, nice what you're saying about connecting with guests. There's also connecting with listeners, having that same feeling. I'm listening to someone recording a podcast in Brazil,
Hmm.
speaking to someone in Europe or whatever. And, that, yeah, having that sort of relatable factor to them is really nice. So,
I
55
love
countries.
that.
In total, the hours that we've recorded is 146 hours.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I did a quick calculation. That's the same as 6 days. So
Oh,
imagine just listening to Unmute from Monday morning until Saturday evening. It's, yeah, the
without
equivalent
sleeping,
of.
without eating, just listening.
I think people would get sick of us, but and then in terms of like the listenership as well, I thought it's really significant. In this time, we have seen great growth in the number of people listening around the world. So in total, again, since August, our episodes have been played just under 15,000 times, which is amazing. And that's from around 3 to 4 thousand people.
Oh my God.
3 to 4 thousand people are listening to us and acting
That is
on.
huge. That is
It's
huge.
amazing. If it was one person, I think it would be, really special still. But knowing that it's thousands, it's just like wow. That's it's a drop in the ocean in terms of the planet population. But
Hmm.
if we can do that between August and now, think of what we can do next year. You know,
Right? Yeah, I
yeah.
agree.
So that leads me to this question for
Hmm.
2025. So when thinking of Unmute, what hopes and dreams do you have for the podcast next year?
Okay, okay. So first of all, like this metrics and numbers is something that really sticks with me because I know that is, like one person has, like a lot of colleagues and a lot of people.
Mm,
But if we are only touching one person, then it's already enough. But
yeah.
we have so many numbers, so that is amazing. And I would say that one dream for Unmute in 2025 would be to keep collaborating with you, Jim.
Mm,
To be honest, this year was such, like in my personal life was such a year that has a lot of changes and a lot of things. But having you as a person, like a go-to person collaborating with me was always something that really brought me this feeling that of belonging, like I
mm.
have this, like this sense of stability. So I really appreciate that. So I just want to appreciate you for a
Oh,
moment.
that's so sweet.
but I would say that my dream would be to, like keep collaborating and keep hearing voices from diverse backgrounds from
Mm,
all over the world, so we can keep exploring these different facets of well-being,
yeah,
and maybe like having some game changers bringing their own, like expectations and their own um, backgrounds too. That would be very awesome. So I would say that my dream would be for us to keep preaching and providing well-being awareness for everybody that we have here at Concentrics, because I know that this is a topic that is especially important for everybody. So
mm,
that would be a great way for us to do that, to keep allowing everybody to have the space to talk about what they really want, what they really need.
yeah, absolutely. Keep the conversation alive.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it on unmute. Yeah, that's beautiful. Really,
How
really
about
nice.
you? What are your plans for 2025?
I want to record more episodes with you
Oh, I
because,
love
yeah,
that.
the fact that we've only done one together, that seems wrong. We need to do more episodes together. I think that would
Agree.
be a lot of fun. I think as well. I want to ask more of the difficult questions. I think
Mhm.
there's some subjects that are quite taboo and people don't like the conversation coming up, but it needs to happen. We
Mhm.
need to remove stigma around certain things. So we've got some plans for next year, doing an episode, for example, on women's periods. That
Mhm.
shouldn't be something that shouldn't be spoken about.
Right.
More episodes on LGBTQ plus community.
Mhm.
Yeah, these are just some of I want to, I guess, prove that Concentrics is a company that and are brave and are there for all of our game changers and as
Mhm.
inclusive as possible. And a um, part of our culture is to challenge the status quo, and I
Mhm.
think that kind of exists in the stigmas that exist. So I want to have more of those kind of conversations. And I think my last wish would be to have Chris Caldwell as a guest. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, so Chris, if you're listening,
Please send an
yeah,
email.
yeah.
Contacts are down below.
One day. I mean, yeah. If I'm sure Chris's workload would be, I can't even imagine how busy he is. But hey, I'm allowed to dream. So one day we can get Chris.
No,
That
we
would be
are
my
all
dream.
allowed.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, well, I think for part one, looking back at the year, there's a lot of positives for us to take away, but also a chance to say thank you to each other and to the listeners, the guests, everyone who's been supporting the podcast as well. So yeah, I just want to include that, and I don't know if you want to say some words as well.
Okay.
Perfect.
So
Sorry, go on.
so thank you everybody for being part of this amazing year. I couldn't, like do anything without the help of Jim and the help of everybody and you, our listeners, who has been here since day one. So thank you so much for having us and for allowing us to, like enter your house, enter your phones, and be part of your day to day. This is something that we appreciate a lot, and we expect to keep doing for
So nice.
2025 as well.
Yeah. No, definitely. So nice.
Join us again next week for another episode where we unmute the conversation around mental health.